They came from the cold north and swore an oath in a warm palace of marble and gold. They were tall men with long-hafted axes, hired not to rule an empire, but to guard it, the Varangian Guard of Constantinople. The idea sounds like legend. Vikings and later English warriors standing with the Byzantine emperors at the world's richest crossroads. But this story rests on dates, names, and carved letters you can still see in stone. In the year 988, Emperor Basil II struck a deal with Prince Vladimir of Kiev for thousands of Rus fighters. Those men helped Basil win a civil war and became the core of a permanent bodyguard. Later, after 1066, waves of Anglo-Saxons sailed east to join the same unit. Chroniclers wrote about them. Runic graffiti in Hagia Sophia still marks their presence. Behind the romance lies a working system: pay, oath, discipline, and in battle, fearsome results. Beginnings, from Rus oath sworn to imperial bodyguard. Let's start with a bargain. In 988, Basil II, the Eastern Orthodox Christian and Byzantine emperor from 976 to 1025, required reliable troops to suppress rebellions. Prince Vladimir of Kiev sought prestige, a royal marriage, and a means of entry into the Christian world. The agreement that followed sent around 6,000 Rus warriors to Constantinople. They fought for Basil in 989 and became the backbone of an elite palace guard, foreigners with no local ties, bound by an oath to the throne. That origin is recorded across standard histories, and it explains the Varangian Guard's special place: close enough to protect the emperor, distant enough to be trusted over political factions. What did Varangian mean? The word points to a sworn companion, from Old Norse Varangi, a pledged man who serves by formal agreement. In Greek sources, they appear as Varangoi, in Slavic as Variag. The label fits the job. These were contract soldiers whose loyalty focused on their oath, their pay, and their honor, not on any neighborhood noble. Basil II used them as shock troops and as palace guardians. They helped him break a major revolt and later served in campaigns from Syria to Italy. Their reputation grew fast, disciplined in peacetime, terrifying in a fight, and always near the emperor's person. The unit's commander, the akolothos, was usually a Greek official. The rank and file were foreigners. This mix let the court steer the regiment while keeping it separate from the city's intrigue. The guard changed in the late 1000s. After the Norman conquest of England in 1066, many defeated or displaced Anglo-Saxon warriors sailed to the Mediterranean. Sources describe a large influx of Englishmen. One account even claims that more than 5,000 men arrived in 235 ships to serve Alexios I Komnenos. However precise the figure, the trend is clear. By the 1100s, Greek writers sometimes called the regiment the Anglo-Varangians. That term matters for culture, language, and battlefield style. Housecarls, professional paid soldiers and bodyguards, and Norsemen now fight under the same banner. By role, the Varangians stood guard at doors and corridors, escorted the emperor in public, investigated treason cases, and held a key place in parades. By design, they entered battle only when the moment turned critical. Byzantine authors, sometimes wary of barbarians, still praised their steadiness under fire and their fear factor when the long axes came down. The mix that Basil II created, a foreign oath and local control, lasted because it served both sides. The emperors got a guard outside city politics. The guardsmen got steady pay, rich bonuses, and a path home with honor. A legendary privilege even grew around imperial funerals. Stories say the guard could claim gifts from the palace treasury at a ruler's death, a reminder that service had a price and a reward. Tools, training, and the work of guarding a world capital. Picture a quiet corridor of polished stone, lamplight on gold mosaics, and a file of men with tall axes moving in step. That was the daily work of the Varangian Guard, to make the palace feel safe. Their main weapon was the two-handed Danish axe, a long-hafted cutter that could break shields and frighten horses. Byzantine writers label them axe-bearers, and Anna Komnena, princess and historian, notes their presence around her father, Alexios I Komnenos. The image endures because it matches the sources: heavily armed, physically imposing, steady under pressure. But the guard was more than muscle. Ceremony mattered in Byzantium, and the regiment had a public face. They walked in state processions, ringed the throne during audiences, and controlled doors between the inner palace and the outside world. That constant presence kept plotters honest. The men answered to the akolothos, a court officer who linked the foreign troops to palace orders. It's a smart design, a dependable blade with the handle kept in imperial hands. Training blended northern habits with Roman drill. Veterans from Scandinavia and England knew how to fight on foot in a tight group, rotate ranks, and keep formation in chaos. In Constantinople, they introduced parade timing, guard shifts, and the precise choreography of public ceremonies. When called to field duty, they formed a reserve near the emperor, then moved to the hottest point. Their job wasn't to skirmish, it was to finish fights, cut through a breached line, hold a gate, or escort the emperor off a dangerous field. Pay and perks kept the unit attractive. Service in the capital meant regular coin, gifts after big campaigns, and a share of war spoils. Some returned home rich enough to raise stones in their own honor. One Swedish boulder, runestone U-112, names a captain of the Varangian Guard who came back and carved that rank into memory. Paychecks became monuments, and monuments became data. The Guard's reputation for loyalty also created strong traditions. Accounts say that when one emperor died, Varangians could claim gifts from the palace, part of the unspoken contract that tied dangerous service to real reward. Whether or not every detail of that custom can be proven in court records, the idea fits the broader pattern. The regiment's oath ran to the throne as an office. When a new emperor took the seat, the Guard served the new man, which explains why rulers trusted them in the first place. Myths cling to the Guard, so it helps to sort them. Were they Vikings forever? Early on, most were Rus and Scandinavians. After 1066, many were English. Greek authors even coined terms that highlight the mix. Were they mindless berserkers? Sources do admire their shock value, but place them in disciplined roles, such as palace watch, rear guard, or emergency reserve. Were they blindly loyal to a man? Better to say they were loyal to the throne. Writers note moments when they served a new emperor as soon as the old one was gone. Loyalty ran with the office, which was precisely why emperors relied on them. If you want proof beyond words, go back to the scratches in Hagia Sophia's galleries. Halfdan and Arni are now carvings for tourists. They are small acts of presence by men who stood watch in that very building. They link the oath-sworn North to the imperial South in a way no saga alone can do. Together with court histories and payroll logic, those letters tell you what the Guard was: a practical solution to a political problem. Foreigners with pride in their craft, hired to keep rulers alive and a capital calm. On campaign: Sicily, Dyrrhachium, Manzikert, and the city under siege. The Guard earned fame in the field. In the 1000s, they sailed with Byzantine forces to southern Italy and Sicily. Under General George Miniakis, they fought Arabs and Normans, an early taste of the clashes that would define the century's westward wars. The sources place Varangians in the toughest points of assault and in pursuits where their axes could turn retreat into rout. Successes in Italy built their standing back in Constantinople. Emperors like units that win and come home. In 1081, at Dyrrhachium, on the Adriatic coast, the Guard fought the Normans of Robert Guiscard. Anna Komnene's history, the Alexius, describes the axe-bearers, many of whom are now English exiles, eager to meet the Normans in open battle. Their charge at the start shook the enemy line, but the battle turned when cavalry counterattacked and supporting troops gave way. Even in defeat, the Guard's push became a story. English housecarls and Norse veterans striking hard for a Greek emperor against the same kind of foes who had beaten them at home. Later scholars have even noted how Anna's tales echo English memories of Hastings, a sign of how human feelings ride with military facts. At Manzikert in 1071, against the Seljuk Turks, parts of the Guard formed one piece of a very mixed Byzantine army. The day ended in disaster when allies defected and units broke. Emperor Romanos IV was captured. No unit could save a battle that fell apart on so many fronts, but records do list Varangians among the imperial contingents, another proof that the Guard fought in the big set-piece moments, not just in palace halls. The political shock that followed, civil war and loss of much of inland Anatolia, shaped the empire for centuries. Then came the Fourth Crusade in 1203 to 1204, when Western armies attacked Constantinople itself. Byzantine and eyewitness sources describe brutal street fighting and assaults on the walls. Varangians held sectors of the defenses and took part in hand-to-hand clashes, axes flashing along parapets and gates. They could not save the city from the betrayal, fires, and the sheer weight of attack, but their presence is recorded in accounts of the sack. The Guard survived in reduced form under successor states. A Greek chronicle still notes Varangians escorting a prince in 1259, yet by the 1300s, the world had changed. That long arc, from Basil II's day to a century after 1204, shows how deeply they were woven into imperial life. Individual stories add color. The most famous is Harold Sigurdsson, also known as Harold Hardrada, who served in Byzantium in the 1030s and early 1040s, fought on multiple frontiers, and eventually returned to claim Norway's throne. Saga writers make him larger than life, but the core path is agreed upon: a northern prince, a Varangian officer, and a king. His career proved that the Guard was not a backwater, it was a ladder for talent. Look across these campaigns and one pattern stands out. The Guard was used where the stakes were high, to steady a wavering line, to push through a breach, to anchor a retreat, or to persuade a crowd that the emperor's will would be obeyed. That mix of symbol and steel is why the unit keeps showing up at the hinge points of Byzantine stories. Conclusion: the Varangian Guard endures because the pieces connect. A dated deal in 988, a victory in 989, steady palace service, sharp work in the field, and names literally scratched into the city they guarded. Early on, they were the Rus and Scandinavians. After 1066, many were English. Through every change, the oath held: protect the emperor and act when it counts. Numbers anchored the tale. About 6,000 men in the founding contingent. Runestones at home. Brief carved names in Hagia Sophia. Eyewitness histories in Greek. The romance is real, but it rests on sources. If a lesson lies within the story, it is this: institutions can transform raw force into reliable service when they match the right incentive to the right job. Basil II found that mix. The Varangians carried it for generations, leaving a trail any curious mind can still follow. From Swedish fields to a marble gallery, to pages written by a princess who watched them guard her father. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about the Byzantine Empire, check out our book, The Byzantine Empire, a captivating guide to Byzantium and how the Eastern Roman Empire was ruled by emperors such as Constantine the Great. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.